Today on Veterans Day, I'm here at St. Michael's Cemetery, standing next to my grandfather, Master Sergeant Jerome Milton Joyce. He was born January 27th, 1928, in the south side of Pittsburgh, right down the hill, and he died March 9th, 1995, unexpectedly of a massive heart attack when he was 67 years old. This March 9th, he will be dead 30 years. I wanted to give you a little bit of a biography about Mooch, my grandfather, and tell you about the amazing life that he lived, not only in the south side of Pittsburgh, but also traveling the world as a Southsider for free, mind you, thanks to the United States Navy, United States Air Force. So my grandfather was half Irish and half German. He was Irish on his dad's side of the family, the Joyces, and German on his mother's side of the family, the Rebels. When my grandfather's ancestors came to the south side of Pittsburgh from Ireland and Germany, the Irish came in the 1880s and the Germans came in the 1840s and 1850s. So they were pretty solidified in the south side of Pittsburgh right when he was born, before the Great Depression. My grandfather first lived on Sarah Street down there in the Southside Flats, and then they moved a couple other places. They lived on Carson Street, and then they finally lived on 2708 Jane Street. His grandparents, the Rebels, they owned what is now Shipka's 1 on South 27th Street, the corner of South 27th. His house, my grandfather's house, was right down on Jane Street. And so that was the neighborhood. So from like 27th Street, Jane Street, Sarah Street, etc., that was the neighborhood, quote unquote. So my grandfather during World War II was 12, 13, 14 years old. He was an early teenager. And his older brothers, Kenny and Reed Joyce, Kenny was serving in the Army and Reed was serving in the Marine Corps. My grandfather didn't want to go work at Jones and Laughlin. He knew he had to eventually, but at that time during World War II, he was very patriotic and wanted to serve in the military, not because his brothers, but also because of the siblings. If you think about it, you look at Larkin's Way, Sarah Street, Jane Street, 27th Street, all of these places down in the south side of Pittsburgh, all tons and tons and tons of brothers, siblings, cousins, everybody was serving in World War II in Southside. If you look at Southside, if you look at a census record, you can look at all the boys ages, let's say 15 to 25 years old. 90% of them were serving in the military during World War II. So Mooch, my grandfather, wanted to serve. 1945 comes, he's 17 years old. The year before, he drops out of South High School in his beginning of sophomore year, and he starts working at J&L. Now, my great-grandparents, Walter and Marie Joyce, they were very unhappy with this. They knew that eventually he would drop out, but they didn't expect it. He dropped out, worked at J&L for about a year, from 44 to 45, and then in 1945, during the ending of the war, he, with his parents' permission, written permission, at 17 years old, he served and enlisted in the United States Navy. So to give a little bit of a compact view on his military career, he served from 1945 to 1975, 30 years in the United States Navy and Air Force. In the Navy, he served from 1945 to 1949 in the end of World War II into the Cold War. 1950 to 1953, during Korea in the Cold War, he served in the Navy again. And then in 1954, he decided to change branches and go into the Air Force. So from 1954 to 1975, he served in the United States Air Force. Now, from 1960 to 1975, during that 15-year period, he served as a recruiter in the United States Air Force. Periodically, maybe like from 1960 to 1962-ish, he was serving in Ohio and Pennsylvania, but it wasn't until, I would say, 1962 when he got his station in downtown Pittsburgh recruiting in his hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. By the end of his career in 1975, he was 47 years old, serving in World War II, the Cold War, during Korea, and serving 1 year at Benoit Air Force Base in Vietnam. My grandfather in 1975 was 47 years old. From that 30-year span, 17 to 47, he saw the world. A Southsider from the south side of Pittsburgh, right down the hill at St. Michael's. He served all over the world. He served in China, Japan, England, Ireland, Italy, Scotland, the Philippines. He went everywhere. My grandfather literally was in almost every single continent, South America, North America, and even Vietnam, 1 year in Vietnam. And my grandfather wouldn't have had that opportunity, wouldn't have had those chances as a working kid, son of a steel mill worker at J&L Southside. He wouldn't have had those opportunities. He would have never been able to see the different corners of the world and experience the cultures and the languages and the diversity of the peoples around the world if it wasn't for the Navy and the Air Force. My grandfather gave 30 years of his life for this country, 17 years old to 47 years old. Then after 1975, he wanted to go back into the military, not active duty, but as a civilian. So in 1977, at 49 years old, he started working for the Department of the Army as a civilian worker at the 99th ARCOM in Oakdale, Pennsylvania. From 1977 to 1993, my grandfather, Mooch Joyce, served as a civilian worker at the 99th ARCOM for the Department of the Army. So if you compile from 1945 to 1993, so from the time he was 17 years old to 65 years old, his whole life, he served as a worker for the military, active and civilian. He died March 9th, 1995, a year and a half after he retired at 67 years old. Sadly, he didn't have that much time in retirement, but he served this flag honorably for most of his life, probably all of his life. And that's why I'm so proud to be up here and to present this to you on Veterans Day of all days, because my grandfather really gave his all and gave his life for this country, but this country gave him benefits and gave him opportunities and experiences that he would never would have had if he would have stayed his whole life down in the south side of Pittsburgh.